as I mentioned earlier, our focus right now is trying to figure out how to safely get the remaining hydrocarbon in that cavern out and replace it with brine. And then we'll be able to monitor it. Beyond that, you know, we're working with a lot of geophysicists to answer the question and try to come up with an answer of what exactly happened and how it failed. But we don't have a, you know, I can't speak to that right now. My focus is over on operations, so it's really about how do we get the hydrocarbon out of the well safely.
But if it's continuously flowing into it, I mean, that's what...
Your hand's been up.
I want to know if there was any scientific data to determine if and will the cavern completely fall in.
Okay, the question is there any scientific data that can conclude whether the cavern can completely collapse in? And Gary?
It's going to be the same answer. That is, the stability of the cavern and the rocks around it are one of the key things the failure analysis program is going to address. I can't answer that right now, but the stability of the cavern is certainly on the list of things we're going to look at.
So you thinking once they alleviate the pressure from those wells, that's gonna stop the bubbling in the bottom?
You're talking the relief wells we drilled?
Yes, sir.
The relief wells are going to have a localized radius of influence. It's very unlikely that the two wells that we suspect have gas in them are going to stop the bubbling in the bayou.
Well, where would that pressure that's causing the bubbling in the bottom come from?
Okay, I don't have an answer. We're working on it as best we can right now. It's
What
another.
if y'all drill where y'all drilling if that's not what y'all think?
Right. Easy access.
Sean spent a great deal of time mapping the top of the aquifer to get the high points in the aquifer where we feel that the gas would be accumulating. These are the first points that they've selected as the best spots to put these relief wells, and then they'll be choosing additional points with the goal of removing this from the aquifer safely and addressing all the concerns that have been raised about the venting.
You can't really say for sure that once all the pressure is off there, that it's gonna stop the bubbling in the bottom.
But it is observation points.
Correct.
It's part of,
That's the hope, but you're probably right. I don't think anybody can say for sure right now that once they start venting, that's going to go out there hope for. Yeah.
Hoping we're gonna take the pressure off here and it's gonna stop.
it'll be, it is,
That's
all
the
of those
goal.
observation points we have mapped, and that'll be indicators over time.
David Mitchell, and then one
Mr.
of the two
Hecox.
last.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
Mr. Hecox.
Mr. Heacock?
Hecox.
Did we get the dog? We got David, and we got two more questions here, and that'll conclude the briefing.
Can you explain just real quick how the oil, this is like naturally occurring oil outside the cavern, correct? It's in a layer, right?
Correct.
How it got from there into the cavern to the surface. How did it do that? Do we know how that happened?
The simplest pathway for that would be up beside the salt dome. In other words, the oil went in the cavern and we're sampling it there, but also we know where the sinkhole is. The sinkhole is just outside the edge of the salt, and the most logical explanation is the oil you're seeing at the surface came up along the salt dome.
So how, so it's not the confirmation that the stuff inside, that the cavern failed and caused a sinkhole. I guess what I'm confused about is, you're not saying that the oil in the cavern got to the sinkhole, you're just saying it's the same oil, and therefore it...
Yeah, it's the same oil we're seeing in the sinkhole, which is outside the edge of the salt, that we're seeing in the cavern. That's what I can tell you right now. The pathway you're asking for, we're working on it.
That's where the diesel come from?
It's been confirmed that it's crude. Earlier testing said it was in the diesel range, but it's been later tested to be crude.
John, I just want to ask you, the man was talking about swamp gas,
But swamp gas?
Yeah, that y'all have reports of ever having swamp gases before?
All right, the question is whether or not there are reports of other swamp gas in Pierpont, and I think that's what this gentleman that said it was swamp, maybe you can answer that question.
Yeah, the so-called swamp gas is a pretty common occurrence. So you get a lot of vegetative material in the bayou that just the trees fall down, leaves, branches, and all that, and eventually decays in an environment where there's no oxygen, and it generates methane in the near surface and bubbles up.
Have you seen the bubbles in the Pierpont Bayou? That's no tree. They called,
No, but, which locations are you talking about? What,
Now, you talking Pierpont Bayou, you talking Bayou Corn, Grand Bayou?
Pierpont Bayou.
Okay, and there's, in Pierpont Bayou, we have a location off of Pierpont Bayou, but it's not in the bayou itself. Okay, and yes, I did. I did receive the call, and it's quite different from what's here in Bayou Corn and Grand Bayou. Oh, Mr. Boudreaux?
I had a question about the sonar of the Oxy 3 cavern. The most recent sonar shows that the roof is still intact. It hasn't changed. So
Correct.
what's the explanation for the 1,300 feet or so of sediment buildup in the bottom of the cavern? Do you think it's not possible that something did collapse and then bridged over, and the sonar just shows that it's still in the same place? Is that a possibility?
Let me repeat the question. Is it possible that the salt cavern bridged over
Yeah.
and they just
The
can't,
top blew out.
the
or
top
whatever,
came
opened
down
up,
and it just bridged over now?
Had 1,300 feet of sediment come in, and in the sonar, which is just a reflection of, and you got a picture of it, but it may show it's still intact. Is
Yeah,
that
what,
possible?
I think, I understand what you're asking. What he's basically asking is, did the entire, maybe the roof of the cavern came down and something else bridged over and made it look like it was just normal, okay? The thing is when, I think you said with Texas Brine, when they drilled in with the relief well, they found the top of cavern exactly where they expected to. And when they do this, they've got directional drilling, they've got very good control with the direction, TVD, all that good stuff. So they hit the cavern roof exactly where they thought they were supposed to. And with this sonar, what this sonar does is every 3 degrees it shoots a measurement. And it's just way too close for the other one. If the top of this cavern would have collapsed in, you would see very, very irregular shapes and sizes around this cavern. And it's just way too similar to the older surveys for it to have been a collapse in the top part of the roof.
Explanation for the sediment.
I'm sorry?
The 1,300 feet of sediment in the bottom of the cavern.
Well, look, I think everybody was maintaining that it collapsed in from the side rather from the top down.
The sonar shows that?
The sonar didn't get
Sonar
below.
can only show as deep as you can go because we have the sediment fill to about 4,300 feet, and this is measured depth. We have the sediment fill to 4,300 feet. You can't get the sonar down any
Correct.
deeper
I
than that.
understand
So we were only able to do the sonar from there up.
All right, the mosquitoes
Last-
are starting
last
to
question.
come up.
Texas Brian, can I ask you a question? Maybe you can
One
answer
last
it.
question. What's your question?
Why are some camp owners being given a check and not all of them?
Question is, why are some camp owners receiving a check and not all of them? Texas
I'm not
Brian?
gonna comment on those things tonight. We're here to talk about operations on the property.
He says they won't comment on that tonight, about operations only. Yeah.
Do we know if Dow bubbling is still going on today?
Who's bubbling?
That episode that happened in 2000.
The 2003 Gulf South incident, whether or not they're still bubbling? I don't know. Does anybody here? Does anybody have any reports on that? The question is whether or not there's any similar or same bubbling from 2003.
Did they ever stop the bubbling?